You're listening to Drinks and a Movie with your host, Rudy. Spoiler alert.
Rolling Drinks and a Movie podcast. Sorry, dang. Drinks and a Movie podcast. All right.
Cut you off already. Yeah. No, just kidding.
I'm right here with co-host Matt. Thanks for doing the show again. It's been a while.
Glad to be here.
So now we got you back in, and special day for a couple of reasons. So the movie of this recording is going to be Bong Joon Ho's 2002 or 2003, actually 2003. What I think is possibly his best film, Memories of Murder. And pairing with this, you know, we're recording in November. It's just a week before Thanksgiving. We're getting into that cooler weather, and it is definitely rye time. And we got some of the best ryes in the game right here in front of me. We've got some Sagamore Spirit. Now, if you follow the Instagram, you know I am a gigantic Sagamore Spirit fan. I've got a ton of bottles. Somehow I feel like when I cover their bottles, it always gets shafted, though. Like it's either me in a solo episode or just on the phone with someone and they don't get to try it. But yeah. We're here and we got two, looks like distillery exclusives. So Matt, you were at the distillery itself. Super jealous. Tell us about your trip to Maryland and about the trip to Sagamore Spirit.
In Baltimore for a wedding for my wife's friend. And she was like, she's down to go to visit a distillery, and Sagamore Spirits is in town. The only thing I know about Sagamore is because of you, to be honest with you. So like, I wasn't too familiar with the brand until you had gave us some taste of it. And to be honest, my memory is a little bit cloudy about it. So I was like, oh man, but just the fact of visiting a distillery and seeing how this stuff is made, super cool. If you're ever in Baltimore, highly recommend. The tour is only $20 and I would have paid $100 for it, just to let you know.
Only 20? Oh,
only $20. And you get a tasting with it. Okay.
Right. Wow.
And they have it going Monday through Saturday. They might even have Sundays. I don't even know. We barely got in on a Saturday evening at like 6 or 7 o'clock. And it is surprisingly small how their operation actually works. They have a small team. I was there at like 6 or 7 p.m., so the team wasn't bottling or anything like that. But they only have 5 or 7 full-time employees on bottling. They only have the very small operation, but it's a beautiful campus, and you get to see all the things that make it and all the vats they use and the process they go through. And you can see how it's being fermented and all this kind of stuff, and where they add in the rye and how much corn they're using. And they walk you through the whole process, what their mash build is like, you know, and it was a little bit funny because it felt a little bit stereotyped. Like there was like 15 dudes and my wife was the only woman. She's like, am I the only one that, you know? So that part was a little bit funny, but that part, like everyone was super interested in like how it was made and stuff. And they answer all your questions and they walk you through all the different steps and everything. And some of the things I found interesting were, one, just how small their operation is, considering how, I don't know, are they global? I think they might ship globally, but they're how well they are distributed around the country. Maryland rye versus some of the other, versus Tennessee.
Yeah, Kentucky rye, Pennsylvania.
So they talked about that, what makes the difference, the fact that they grow it here. You can go visit the farm. It's 20 miles away from where they do the distilling. And the one part that I also found interesting was when they barrel it, they go through the whole process of how their barrels are burned and all this kind of stuff. And they won't disclose the location of where they store their barrels.
Huh. Interesting.
And they said, because it's our most valuable asset, we can't risk somebody coming and stealing it or destroying it or anything. Like they can't risk anything to it.
Oh, so they got a little secret, huh?
So they got a little
Sagamore secret.
But, just like we've talked about, like for them, it's really important how they store the barrels, where they store the barrels, how the barrels are made, how they're burned, what they do with them. And as we get into one of them, we'll talk about how they repurpose some of their barrels. Like there's like no waste. And my guess is that's like the financial reality of distilling spirits at this point. It's like, you gotta, every cent has to be accounted for and worth it, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, these are the two that we brought home.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Crazy that it was only $20 for that tour. That's dope. I think it's interesting that you said that your wife was the only woman there. So I've only been on
the person who was doing the tour. She was a woman too, which is interesting. So
I've only been on 2 distillery tours, and for both of them, I'd say at least half the group was
totally. Yeah, like that. It might, and I think it was just that time of, just random timing type of thing.
Ooh, that was a nice pop. I should have done that in front of the mic.
So.
Well, we're going to start. So we'll do this new bottled and bond.
Fantastic.
So this is 6 years old now. Dang, batch 3, man. That's awesome. Like,
Literally, it just released that day or the day before. I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was very new. Thank you. Super excited. I haven't tasted it. So this is the one they didn't do on the tasting. So when you go on the tasting at the end of the tour, they start with their flagship, and then they do the double barrel. Then they do the cask strength.
Yeah.
And then they finished with this one, the double bonded, the double bock. I'm sorry. Is it double bock? What the hell is
yeah,
it?
Dopplebock.
Doppelbock. Thank you. Which is the type of barrel, and I'll get into that in just a sec. But so they finished with I'm calling it again, the Doppelbock. Cut me off. It's already.
Yeah, when you sent me the picture of that one, I had to look up what Doppelbock was. It turns out it's a dark beer.
It is a dark beer. Ooh, this smells. What's the proof on this? Because this smells a little bit closer to their.
100.
Oh, okay. So it's strong.
Bottled and bond. Yeah.
It's like it reminded me of their flagship.
I'm gonna pour
Please,
the
let it open up.
Doppelbock right now, just so it has some time to open up. Yeah. So the first bottled and bond release they did, I thought was just kind of fine.
Yeah.
But then last year they did batch 2, which is the 5-year one. And that's a banger. Like, that's one where I need to buy a backup bottle, like, straight up. That one's really great. Like, I didn't even know that this one was on the radar. Like you said, it was released that day, right?
Yeah.
And when you sent me the pictures of what they had this Doppelbock one, like distillery exclusive. And then now you said you got this.
Different location. They didn't tell us till the end of the tour. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. See, that's awesome. That's so cool.
I love the bottles for Sagamore. It's one of the things.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
They make
them
them
so good.
It's such an important part of their process too. And they said none of the bottles get wasted. If there's an imperfection in the bottle, they repurpose for their candles. And my wife picked up one of their candles. The candles are freaking awesome.
Really?
They smell so unique and so, all I can say is like beautiful. Like they make your house or they make whatever location. I know I'm sounding like a shill for Sagamore right now, but like the candle smells beautiful. So if you're ever looking for a scented candle, let me highly recommend it because it comes in bottles that had imperfections to them, like all part of the process.
Oh, dude, so, I would definitely get a Sagamore Spirit candle.
It was super cool, and I think they sell them on their store. So they're like $25, but they're totally worth it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Dang, man, dude, I'm so stoked. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I wish I could say more about it. They didn't talk a ton about it, other than it's 6 years, and this is. They might have mentioned it was their third release, but I forgot about that at that point. So I don't know. What did you think about it?
So we know so the thing with Sagamore, and if there's any reps from Sagamore that happen to check into this episode, you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments on the Instagram. But so Sagamore, I mean, I think they probably said this in the store, I think 2016 or 2015, right?
16, I think it was 16 actually.
Yeah,
very
I think
recent.
by the guy that started Under Armour, if I remember correctly.
It's right next door. Under Armour is literally right next door.
And so they were sourcing their whiskey. So I believe it was all MGP sourced, so from Indiana.
Correct.
And what they do though is I think they use their water from their like farm or whatever. So that's a part of it.
You just reminded me. They serve with their tasting their water where they get it from their farm.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's awesome. It's like perfect
That's
water.
awesome,
Yeah, it's super cool.
So, and they do a blend of a 95-5 recipe, which is 95% rye, 5% malted barley, with the barely legal, I think. So 51% rye and then whatever corn and malted barley. Yeah. But they do their blend and it's supposed to be Maryland style because a lot of people think bourbon, but really rye came before bourbon, if I'm remembering my history correctly. Right. And I think Maryland and Pennsylvania, I believe, were like the big kind of hubs of the rye whiskey. But yeah, I guess that just all kind of changed. And then Sagamore is all about bringing back Maryland style rye. And if you haven't tried any Sagamore yet, I'm telling you, you got to get it.
You really
It's
do.
some of the best stuff like in the game, period. And what's really cool is I actually went to a Sagamore tasting at Bar Jackalope maybe 2 years ago now. And at that time, that's when I got to try their first bottled and bond, which is a 4-year.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so for anyone who might not remember, bottled and bond just means a few things. The main key points are it has to be bottled at 100 proof. It has to be at least 4 years old. It has to be made by one distiller in one distilling season or something like that. And has to be made in a government bonded warehouse. So there's a lot more history with it, but that's a basic. Sorry, hopefully.
No, that's exactly. And they talk about like the tax reasons they did this and the history behind it.
Yeah. They shouldn't just have me do the tour apparently, but
you could do it. Literally you could do it.
Yeah. But what's really special about this is, so we were talking about how they source their stuff from MGP.
Yeah.
But then they started barreling and producing their own whiskey. So the Bottled and Bond series is important because we know that it is all their distillate. we know that this is now their 6-year-old product, which is awesome.
Yeah.
The 5-year-old was great. I thought the 4 was just kind of fine. Clearly they figured their stuff out. And yeah, and I think even their regular like flagship Sagamore and their double oak, because I remember when they did that tasting, and that was about 2 years ago, they said that that was the point where they're starting to like cycle it out. So now if you look at their bottles, it'll be like distilled by them and not Indiana. So yeah, sorry everybody. I know that
it's totally cool. And one of the other things I think that you and I have always talked about when we're doing our tastings is that the first sip, they're like most people, the first sip is a little wasted. So do your first taste, and then you really get the flavors on the second and third one. And that's that. I was like, oh, okay. It's nice to know, confirm, like you're not going crazy, you know?
Yeah, right.
The way you're tasting it is the same. So I'm excited to that.
Man, that's a little lighter on the palate than I expected. Wow.
I was like, that went down a little smooth. I'm like, what's
yeah. Oh man, I'm definitely gonna have to do a comparison with the 5-year one I have and this one. Like, soon, maybe I'll do a little video of that. But yeah, it's a little on the thin side of the palate. That reminds me of their flagship, like 83 proof one.
Literally, like the smell reminded me of it too.
I'll have to throw that in the comparison too. Yeah, man, that 100 proof doesn't punch in
not at
too
all.
strong. It's very light. Like this would be an easy sipper, I think, for somebody who's new to drinking whiskey or even rye whiskey.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And yeah, on the nose, I just get like, there's a little bit of maybe like a sweet kind of brown sugar. I want to say it's more, maybe a little more of like a nutmeg forward in a way, like a little bit. Usually when I think nutmeg, I think like a citrus kind of scent. I wouldn't go that far, but it's somewhere in that realm.
On my second sip, I did pucker just a tad, but I don't know. That might have just been a reaction. The scent is wonderful.
That's some like good allspice right there.
All of their
now the sweet like caramel
expressions are, the sense is just awesome on these things. Ooh. Okay, now I'm getting more of the flavor. It's interesting you said nutmeg. I don't know if I would. What is that? I'm getting something around that area. I hate that it's tough for me to describe, and I apologize for going blank sometimes on stuff that I can't remember what these things are described as. But I don't want to say floral. That's not the right. That is totally not. But there's something not as. I'm used to some. Some of the other ones talk about a little more spice, and this doesn't have that.
I feel like it doesn't come through as spicy as some of their other offerings. That's interesting.
Yeah, probably the biggest difference that I noticed.
Yeah, well, I definitely got to do a little side by side with this one. Now I'm getting a little bit of that almost like minty quality on the nose, but not too much. Because that kind of, for me, I'm not that into that. But
I rather like showing flavors of rice spice from our grain, fruit, and floral notes. Oh, well, there you go. Okay. So I was getting a tad more of that fruit and floral, and they say it's right in there. So that makes sense. Starting to get some of that.
Let's move on to this distillery exclusive now. So this one, Dopplebock Finish.
So when they give you the tasting, they started with their flagship. Then they went to, I think, double barrel, and then cask strength, and then this is the one they finished up with. They actually served it with a chocolate, but it's as you mentioned, they're using beer barrels, the barrels that have been used by this company. Doppel, is that the name of the company, Dopplebock, or the type of beer?
It just says German. Yeah, I think it's a type of beer.
They're a local brewery, and so the barrels they use after they're done being used for beer, they stuck this in there.
Oh yeah.
So, and I don't remember which version. Oh man, I can't remember what. Does it say it on there by any way? Like, is it there?
Well, it should just be their flagship, I'd imagine. So, aged 5 years in charred new oak barrels, so they're like 5-year distillate or 5-year whiskey, and then aged 1 year and 9 months in German Doppelbock barrels. So they're both about 6 years old. This one's 6 and 9. This one's coming in at 94 proof. And I'm going to read it back here. Let's see. So made in collaboration with Ferm Brewing Company.
That's what they're called. Yeah, that's right.
So heady and malty with flavors rooted in a classic European lager. That's what you'll taste in this rye whiskey made in collaboration with our friends at Ferm Brewing Company in Gambrel, Maryland. The team at Ferm aged a traditional German Doppelbock in our X double oak. Okay, so in the double oak.
There you go.
In the X double oak wave stave barrels.
That's why I like this.
After they were emptied, we use those barrels to finish our 5-year-old rye whiskey for an additional year and 9 months. The result is a toasty, malty whiskey with notes of toffee and caramel, thanks to those unique wave stave barrels used throughout the process and the spirit of collaboration we share.
I don't know if you pair your tastings with anything very often. I don't. But it was kind of fun to do it with a piece of chocolate. It actually went pretty well. So if that's ever anything you know, out there listening, do that. There are some times where pairings actually can go really well.
Was it like chocolate with caramel or like dark? Like
it was a truffle chocolate, and it was from a local chocolate maker in town, of course.
Nice.
But it was a little dark chocolate. It was dark chocolate, yeah. So there was no extra caramel. The truffle was just dark chocolate.
I'll have to remember that.
Yeah, kind of cool.
I'm going to keep this one so I can just compare them.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, cool. So let's go for the double. This one I remember. So you can already, I mean, just the scent is totally different.
Yeah, it's definitely a little more on like a sweeter side, I want to say.
Absolutely.
It's still kind of mellow for me though.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. This one has a little even less of a nose, in my opinion. When I say less, I mean just less like pungent or spicy. I don't know how to describe it, but
man, that also feels really light on the palate too.
Totally light.
It reminds me of their flagship rye because that's the one thing about that one. Wow, dude, I can taste that like lager.
The malt, I call it malty or lager, whatever you call it. But it's like it's definitely, you can taste some beer.
I can taste that. Yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah, man, that's like really coming through on the finish.
Absolutely, that's the way I was like.
Yeah, on the finish back.
Almost having a beer.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's like you're drinking whiskey, but then after the finish, it's like you just drink a beer.
Literally.
Oh, okay, man.
It's kind of wild,
I
right?
see that. Yeah, I see that. I see that. I like that.
Not always like my first go-to when I think of having a bourbon or having a rye or drinking something, but it's super interesting.
See, I have one of their older releases from like several years ago now that they did where it's finished in a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale barrels, but I haven't even opened it yet.
Yeah,
and those ones are like, I've seen a couple stores that still have them, but they're like pretty much all gone now. Yeah. So I still got to, maybe I'll do that on another episode soon. Like,
and I've had some beer where it's, they'll barrel it in bourbon or whiskey barrels.
Right.
And I think it's
that I don't like.
That's
I hate beer that's been like finished in whiskey or whatever. Yeah. Let's see. Flavor profile. I wanted to not read this till after.
Yeah, totally. That's
so good. Cinnamon spice, brown sugar, orange marmalade, toasted
sweet.
nuts, milk chocolate, malty sweetness. Yeah.
So out of all the tastings, and maybe I haven't remembered, or maybe I did remember, the double barrel is by far like the
double oak.
Double. I'm sorry. Why do I keep saying double barrel? Double oak. Yeah. Sorry, dude, it's late, man. I'm sorry. No, the double oak has been by far my favorite expression of this whole thing, and so immediately I wanted to go home and pick up a bottle because it's the same price there as it wasn't like Total Wine or whatever. So
yeah, lucky for you, it's everywhere.
It's literally everywhere.
It's a good thing that was your favorite.
It's the one I've enjoyed the most, even out of these. But it's cool to taste something that has, you may not be able to taste anywhere. So
yeah, the double oak. I mean that's one because everybody raves about that.
I love it, man. I thought it was my favorite.
But that's the one that it kind of made me realize I was like, maybe I don't care for the toasted finish anymore because everybody like loves this. And I don't dislike it. Don't get me wrong, but it's not really like my go-to. Again, that Bottled and Bond, the batch 2 banger, their sherry finish. Man,
oh man.
Dude, when you go to Total Wine and you get your double oak, I'm telling you,
pick it up.
You have to get the sherry finish. Like, period. Just get it.
Get it. I will. Totally.
And that's that. Right now, we're getting into Thanksgiving, Christmas season. That is a Christmas season whiskey. I'm on
the Sagamore bandwagon, dude. After the tasting, and not just because you visited, but the flavor is just awesome.
It's good. And their cast strength. That's the one I remember like a few years ago. The first one I tried was the cast strength. And I was with Noe. Like, we were somewhere in Riverside. I forget why. But this bar had it, and I was like, cool, I've seen Sagamore at the store. Let's try it. Let's see what's up. And I remember the cast strength like knocked my socks off. There was a period there where I was like, this is the best rye whiskey I've ever had. Now, I think I need a new bottle. Mine's been a little less than half full for a while, and I was drinking it the other night. It doesn't hit me the same. I don't know if it's just me or maybe it kind of flattened out a little bit. But that and my double oak are like half full. So I'll bring them over sometime and we'll finish them because I do need to kill those.
I don't know the price on the sherry finish, but all of these were very affordable bottles, by the way.
Yeah.
Like this one, I think one of them was $70 and the other one was less than that. So like they I don't know if they put out more expensive bottles, but so far it's like really for the amount of money you're spending, I don't know if you can get a better bottle.
Yeah, no, sherry finish is around that 70 mark. They're pretty much all. Sometimes I'll see the single barrel expressions that we were talking a little bit will be like 75 or a little bit more.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I get the sherry. The 8-year batch 2, that's another banger, man. Like,
okay.
8-year batch 2 is good. Batch 1 I thought was just kind of fine. And that you can find at Total Wine too. Dude, just start your Sagamore collection.
I'm going to.
Like if you like all these, like the sherry, I can't say it enough. That's a must have. And anyone who looks at the Instagram saw that I did a blind tasting recently where I did the Midwinter Night's Dram from High West blinded with Sagamore Sherry Finish. And this is the third time I've done that. Like the first time on a video, but I've done it a few times. And every time Sherry comes out on top. But I also did the Palo Cortado in everybody. If you're in Southern California, I'm telling you, I say it in the video. There's only one store that has this because it's a single barrel pick. Palo Cortado Sherry Finish Sagamore Spirit. High Times Wine Merchants in Costa Mesa, California.
Yeah.
If you are a fan of rye, if you are a fan of Sagamore, anything. And I know Sagamore, you guys should send me a care package for selling this, but like you have to get that one. Like I'm telling you guys, I don't care that it's a 45-minute drive or an hour drive.
Do it.
You need to get it. Like while they still have cases.
Jeez.
It is a sleeper that like nobody knows about. And I promise anyone, if you get it, like you can't not love it. I would be surprised for anyone to dislike it. Sorry.
No. And that means a lot considering all the things you have tasted. And as you know, I'm not as much on the collecting side of things. I usually go through my bottles. So like I am going to be drinking this. I'm glad that some of these are a little bit more readily available than others. So it's cool.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks, man.
Hey, no problem, man. Glad to bring him home. This is I couldn't tell you how excited I was to bring him home for you just because I'm like, Rudy's gonna geek out on this stuff.
No, I'm
cool.
like, this was like, wow, that's cool enough. But then a new bottle of Bond, good Lord.
And I didn't tell Rudy before we got together today. I just wanted him to see if okay, see the expression face. Anyway, so.
Appreciate that.
Stoked.
Dang. All right, here we go. Let's talk about this movie. Memories of Murder, Bong Joon Ho, 2003. If you haven't seen it, anybody, highly recommend it. Criterion Collection released it on Blu-ray like 2 or 3 years ago. And that's when I first saw it. Right now, they're having their 50% off sale as we record this. So go buy it.
Go buy it.
Yeah, just go buy it. You know, Bong Joon Ho won the Oscar for Parasite just like 2 years ago.
Yeah, recent. Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of blew up. Love that movie. I haven't seen it since theaters. We should talk about that one soon, but I watched most of his filmography. I think the only one I'm missing is Mother. So I've seen Barking Dogs Never Bite, which was his first film, Memories of Murder. I've seen The Host, Snowpiercer, Oakjaw. One's kind of fine. But I think this film, I think his second feature too, like this is his second movie, is probably his masterpiece, maybe.
So, and I have never seen any of his films, including Parasite. So please don't judge me.
No. We'll have to talk about that soon then.
I'm stoked that you suggest this one because what a treat. What a film. Knowing nothing about it and being completely blind into it. It's the type of film where I wish I spoke Korean, to be honest with you, because the acting is so good in the film. The story, you get totally wrapped up in what's going on in these people's lives and how it affects everyone around it. The cinematography is just unreal. Yeah. I love that we get that there are filmmakers all over the world. And it almost bums me out that I have to look down at the subtitles because I wanted to keep my eyes on what was in the frame the whole movie. It was one of those where I did not want to look away from the screen, you know? So.
Yeah, this movie, I mean, like I mentioned, when Criterion released it a few years ago, I was like, all right, I'm just going to go and get it. Like, I like to take chances like that.
It's a good one.
And that was the first time, that's the first time I watched it. And I loved it so much, man. I thought it was so interesting, just so great. I think everything was well executed. So much so that I almost didn't want to like watch it again immediately. Like I really needed to sit with me. And I think the ending was so powerful. Like the ending gave me chills and
almost brought me to tears, dude. I literally got emotional at the end. Okay,
dude. It really impacted me. Yeah. And I hadn't seen it since. So when I watched it a couple of days ago in preparation of this, that's only the second time I've seen it.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
And the good thing is I actually forgot a lot of what happens. Like I remember like certain key points, but a lot of things I forgot about, and the ending I will never forget. Yeah. Like I remember thinking like I have to try not to focus on that because like I want to get to it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be sad if it doesn't have the same impact. Luckily it did, but it's one of those things where I almost wish I could see it for the first time again. Like, because it just like, I don't know, it resonated with me on such a deep level. Like the ending happened and I remember just kind of sitting there and like just
love those
living in it for a minute, you know, like by
where
myself.
You don't want to move. You're just there.
I just need to take it in. But so just to give the premise real quick, what we have is set in 1986 in somewhere in South Korea. I forget the town, but
I'm going to destroy the name. So it's Wongsong, or I'm sure I'm saying it correctly, but where's the damn name? Hwaseong, I think is the way
Okay.
to say it. Because it is a real town, and they did base some of the.
It's based on a true story.
Based-
Yeah,
there's some-
like I guess from what I understand, like the first kind of serial killer that they had to
Correct.
deal with over there, and we've got these detectives that are trying to solve it, but they're like a little. I don't know if I want to say like hit country, like just not
They're not
really
equipped.
by the book.
They're not
Yeah,
equipped
yeah,
for
and
this.
they don't. This is like some new shit to them.
Yeah, this has never happened.
And there's another detective that comes in from Seoul, so like the city guy that
Yeah.
comes in to like partner up with them to help them, who's like doing it as a volunteer or something.
understands forensics
Yeah.
and investigations and all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff. on a
way
whole nother
way
level.
more educated
Yeah.
than the other guys, and they're just trying to solve this crime and piece it together and catch this person. And
Young ladies are getting raped and murdered. Like,
Yeah.
it's really awful stuff.
I think this is one where we can start from the top and just
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
talk
man. Because the
through.
plot's, it's a lot of the movie is a lot about its plot.
Yeah. So in the main, I guess like star, we got a couple people, but Sung Kang Ho, who was also in Parasite, he was the father. He's like Bong Joon Ho's muse because he was in The Host as well. He's in Snope. He's in like all the movies.
Probably deserved. He's phenomenal in this film.
I forgot what director said this, but someone referred to him as he's basically like I don't know if this is true because I don't know, but he's like the Robert De Niro of Korea.
South Korea. It makes a lot of sense.
But and it does like but with Park Chan-wook too. So even the directors that got big in America or that are like known within like Park Chan-wook, Bong Joon Ho, and all, like he's in those movies and everything too. You know, even in Koreeda's new film, Japanese director, the movie Broker, which was really good. I recommend that. I gotta buy that Blu-ray. But anyway. Opening scene is this like grass field, very yellow. So immediately with the color, a lot of yellow.
A lot of yellow.
And this is this detective, Sung Kang Ho. I forgot his name in the movie, but he discovers the first body under this.
Duman.
Okay, there you go. Under this like little sewer. Again, they're not really dealing with it appropriately, like the crime scene and all that.
Everyone's touching everything.
Yeah,
There's
the
so many
kids
people around.
running
The kids
around
running
it
around
and stuff. And from here, this is the one bit of like saturated color, and it's necessary because it kind of we bookend with this.
Yes,
we
we
return to this
makes
place.
a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then once we get to the police station and we get this opening credits of him just interviewing all these like scumbags and all that and trying to get to it. Very desaturated, very grungy and grimy. This
Definitely
like, police place.
Different
you know?
palette. You can tell right away
Yeah.
that we're in a different location.
Yeah.
Or a different
and
place.
clearly by design, you know?
Totally. I love the way they established the two detectives, mostly Song Kang. Is it Song Kang Ho? Did I say it?
Yeah.
His character. There are a lot of we have a lot of murder mystery type films, and even in 2003, at the time this was released, we had a lot of films up to this point. And I couldn't help but within the first 20 minutes of this film start to think about Fargo, where it was sending us murders in a different location, and we were meeting how different cultures. Because in Fargo, it's North Dakota. How does North Dakota deal with murderers like this? And we have this Frances McDormand's character is this obviously brilliant cop who, you know, is really good at her job and is very well equipped, even though this is not something that happens in her neighborhood. It reminded me of this where these guys are not the best at their job in this kind of specific type of thing. They know the town, but you start to learn some of their methods. And immediately I was almost put off a little bit some of the brutality that the cops do, slapping around people. Then they end up torturing some of these guys.
They're not necessarily good guys.
They're not good people.
And that's one thing
at this point.
That's one thing you really got to appreciate with films from other countries where Hollywood follows a very specific
got a formula.
right? And it's like, and not every movie does this, but most of them do. We all know they like to play it safe.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you have to have like, it has to be very clear cut the morals. This is the good guy. This is the bad guy. The good guy wears white. Oh, the bad guy wears black. You know what I mean? It's very formulaic. Whereas here, they're not necessarily good people.
Yeah.
Like what they do is not good at all.
It's established pretty
they're
early
really
on.
shitty,
Like when they're bringing in the usual suspects, they're slapping them around, and eventually they're going to start kicking them, and it's
literally
brutal.
trying to like falsify. Like that's a big
Getting
deal
false confessions
that they're
out of
doing
them,
that, and these are the characters that we're following. Like they're. For the audience, like they're
heroes.
the good guys, but they're literally like beating people into confessing the stuff they didn't do, just because they want to like close this case, you know. And you know, we get to the second murder, And this is the moment where like, yeah, the press is there.
Yeah,
There's like,
literally everything
there's footprints and the tractor runs it over and nothing's roped off.
Literally a same shit storm.
Yeah, it's so
Shit show.
it's so bad, and it's almost like cringy to watch because it's like, oh man, it's
like,
so
what do these guys do?
wrong.
It even goes a little bit further at how almost like buffoons that the cops are at the beginning of this. The police chief, whose name I can't remember, the head guy. I mean, he's almost like a caricature, yelling things, trying to act like he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But at some point, he's going to admit he has no clue what he's doing. You know, it's like it's so interesting how vulnerable and how ill-equipped that they are, and the film was not afraid to shy away from that.
Yeah,
that they also let some of their worst instincts take over for them at times too, which is important because I hoped my as a film, I'm hoping these guys go somewhere that I care about because it's really disheartening to see them be violent with all these other people, screw things up so bad, and like, you know, you can kind of tell that they want to solve this thing, but they don't care how they solve it. They just want to solve it.
They just want to end it. Yeah,
so, I mean, like, damn.
And then they want to be like the heroes too. Like there's that one point where they have the press and they're like taking a picture for the paper, but it turns out they had it all.
They dressed
wrong.
up the one cop as a girl, like, you know, one of the victims. I was like, it's so
They're
weird.
Gonna do like this reenactment.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck is going on, dude? That's one of those things where I'm like, is this a cultural thing? Am I missing something here? No, they literally just wanted to set it up for for the press.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like at this time when maybe the worst thing they do is, you know, that detective's girlfriend tells him about how like, oh, this one, the slow kid, like always followed around that girl that was a victim. So he goes and catches him. And this is someone who's very clearly, and then they say it like very clearly, like mentally handicapped, I guess would be the word. And they take him in and they just are beating down on him and like holding him prisoner, like just because. And he's giving them information, like they take him to where the death happened and he's giving them information and they're recording it to use as a confession. And it's around this time that the other detective comes in from Seoul. Yeah. And I love how they introduce him in too, where it's like the woman walking alone and then he kind of comes up behind and it's almost this misdirection of like, oh, is this the person?
Is this the guy, right? Yeah.
Turns out he's the detective. They get in a fight. You know, they take him on.
Put him in handcuffs. I appreciate this vignette too. It does this thing where if in the States here, small town living is a real thing. And so you can relate that everyone knows everyone. Like there's some really relatable stuff in there that, yes, this is the countryside in Korea somewhere, but you can totally relate to if you've grown up in the States outside of one of the, you know, the cities and suburbs, because everyone knows everyone. One person says something and you see it all the time on true crime stories you see here in the States. Like somebody gets arrested because somebody said something that they heard from somebody else. Like this is a real thing that happens. So you can understand the cops going down this route, but then they look like total buffoons. They're literally forcing a mentally handicapped person into a confession by beating them by like when the partner comes in and literally jump kicks that guy. I was like flat out just like horrified.
Yeah, he's throwing a lot of jump kicks too. That happens a lot. It's like always that like Mortal Kombat move.
And the way they filmed it, I'm like, holy shit! I think he's really kicking the guy. Or, I'm sure there's some something. It looks like stunt people, but holy shit!
And he puts on like his shoe. What do you call it? Like booties?
Yeah,
like, so it doesn't leave any
he's
marks.
About to kick the shit out of the guy. Jeez, yeah, it doesn't leave scars.
I do like how later they bring that back when they are interrogating that other guy, and all they do is just show him putting it. Like they don't show him like beating the dude.
Yeah, it's so
but the
powerful.
fact that they make it a point to get a shot of him putting it on and you know what's going to happen.
So good, man.
But well, one scene I really appreciated, especially the second time around, that I think does a lot of good work in a short amount of time is, so the detective from Seoul comes out and when they're doing that reenactment stuff is telling them, he's like, yo, this ain't how it happened. Like there's no way.
He's got web fingers.
Yeah, there's no way he couldn't have done it. Like he's connecting the dots, putting the pieces together. And he says something because he shows them what a map or something. He's like, I think there's probably there's another body somewhere. We just haven't found it yet. Because they're like, oh shit. And he's like, it's probably going to be in this area and they're going to check it out. And this little bit of dialogue here, I think does brilliant work where you see the cops are kind of out in the field, like searching stuff. And then it's just the two guys that like to beat everybody, like Sung Kang Ho and the other dude. Yeah. And they're just sitting there and like dicking around with the rubber band. And they're talking about like, oh, he's educated from like 4-year university, blah, blah, blah.
2-year university.
We only went to like 2-year college.
Is there orgy there?
Yeah. It's like that's sex. It shows you like just where their minds are at and also how they're feeling that insecurity of like, well, he's more educated than us. And then also at the same time, besides them saying it, it's visually doing the work by the fact that they're not out there searching.
Yeah,
they're just hanging out, like sitting at the car.
On chairs.
Yeah, they're the only two, and everyone else is out there. And I just thought, I was like, man, yeah, that's some like really, again, good like writing. Script and visual work right there to deliver this information. And again, it's very efficient.
Yeah.
And there's like the show don't tell thing. It's like, well, they're telling us within a different way without it being like super direct, but also they're showing us at the same exact time.
Totally agree.
Really well done.
In addition to that, at that point, at this point, you already know the cops, these two guys are making a lot of mistakes, but now I'm even furthermore, I can't really trust any conclusions they come to at this point.
Yeah.
Which is a great, I wouldn't say misdirection, but it forces, it focuses me as the viewer on something else or that I really can't trust. Like, I think it's a great way to keep our heroes like in check and make us focus on something else, which is going to be I think it's Investigator Sue is his name or so. So I'm probably probably mispronouncing it, but you're totally right. It's like, it's such an efficient and effective, especially at this point in the film where what's going on? How are we gonna get to find the killer and stuff? Because that's really where the whole movie's about is I shouldn't say if that's the whole movie about, but it's for us, the audience, we're invested in who's doing the murders. Are we going to be able to stop them?
Yeah.
Which reminded me a little bit about Seven at the same time too. All the murder, a lot of murder movies are the same, but it reminded me of Seven at points
like
too.
In Zodiac, like Fincher stuff thing. Yeah.
Where you've always got to have the person you can empathize with, and I think we can, a little interestingly enough, as buffoonery and as these guys make some really bad mistakes, you can at least empathize that they want to fix it. They want to close the case type of thing. So
yeah, it sure enough, they find the body there too.
They do.
So now it's like, all right, this other dude he's credible.
Yeah,
but continues to make them kind of insecure. And I like the way they like the humor in this movie too. And it's again like, other cultures just have such an interesting way of like blending that stuff in and like the tones, they just really nail it where, there's humor throughout up to this point, but then even when they're like all kind of hanging out they're with like their chief and they're at the karaoke bar and all that. And,
so funny.
The dude from Seoul is like very serious because he's still in the work and everyone else is just getting drunk and they get in a little bit of an argument. And this is where he brings it up like, oh, why don't you go to America and you can do all this like
calls him out
American stuff or whatever.
Point of view,
and they're like but meanwhile the chief is like in the background like waking up all drunk and like throws it. It's just the composition is just really well done.
And the timing on the vomit is just like perfect. Hand me the barrel.
Yeah.
Literally as soon as they get to their tense point, vomits. It's like, it's great.
Yeah.
Really well done. Really well timed. And I that it also does some service where it starts pushing us along even more. So why am I forgetting the main character's name? Song Kang-ho's character is still pursuing his own thoughts because he has these ideas that if he looks into somebody's eyes, he's going to be able to tell if they're the murderer or not, some ridiculous nonsense. So, and so he goes on his own course of trying to figure out what's going on. Am I jumping the gun? Is this the part where he's like, oh no, they do. Okay. So they start analyzing the bodies and they're starting to get the forensics back from the bodies and why are there no pubic hairs found at any of these victims? There's no semen left. There's none. The stuff that we were normally, how you'd get to like figure out who's in charge or who's responsible for some of these murders. And so he starts to go looking for dudes who are shaved.
Yeah. This is one of those funny moments too.
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
It's done. So, and this is one of those moments too, where, you're saying you wish you spoke Korean, where I wonder how this humor hits over there compared to here. Like, I think most people wouldn't really get it upon first viewing, maybe.
I
at least Americans.
Yeah, we're probably right.
And maybe I'm wrong, but because dead serious, telling like them, like they're all there at their desk and like
this is what he believes is actually the real thing.
There's no pubic hair. So like you said, like we got to look for baldies.
Yeah, baldies.
People that are shaved or whatever. And the other like aspect of this is there's another cop there. I forgot her name, but she's also thinking about this stuff like alongside them, but she's very much sidelined.
Yeah.
And she comes in, and this is where you see how they're also kind of misogynistic too, where she comes in with like, hey, well, I've got some ideas.
And they tell her her drink order. They tell them their drink order is essentially, get me some, tea with whatever.
Yeah. No, he immediately writes right. He said he laughs in her face and he even says he responds to her in English.
Oh yeah.
He just good job.
Yeah, good job.
Coffee. Like get me more coffee. Like just go get some coffee. Yeah. But she brings in the next big clue of like every time there's been a murder, somebody has requested this song to be played. We got to look into this connection. And then of course the other detective is like, no, we got to do that. We got to find the postcard, the name, because they send it in and they say the name.
Yep.
So there's a clue there, and they're going down like that road of trying to figure that out. And then I love how it cuts to this is such a funny scene when he's just like in the sauna, like
looking at guys' dicks,
watching everybody walk by.
It's perfectly framed. All you see is dude's asses walking by.
And just his eyes, like just
and then he goes to the locker room and checks over there.
Just looking at.
I sure hope that was meant for humor, and I hope culturally that's because I thought it was.
It has to be.
I could not stop. I was like, because I got to tell you. Because of some of the violence that happened earlier in the film, like I wasn't quite sure if I was able to laugh yet, but by this point I know, okay, they're literally making buffoonic choices. I can laugh at this stuff.
And what I appreciate too is that he does really believe in it, right? And you can empathize too, because after they make it a point to have the scene when he's talking to his girlfriend or his wife or whatever, and he's kind of venting about that. He's like, man, I went in, I'm trying to do this thing, and they even laughed at me and wouldn't tell me, and I had to pay all this money. Like they wouldn't let me
to look for a ball.
Like,
probably not going to be reimbursed for that. That's right.
Exactly. I'm not going to reimburse. But he's trying, and that's where it's they kind of bounce back and forth.
And I think that's why you can empathize with him at this point. Like he is trying his own methods that are full of shit, and then she suggests you go to a shaman. Like I mean, this is
that's another funny part, dude. And then. He's like paying for this. I don't even remember what it was. But he's like, we've got to use dirt from the thing. And
it's going to show a face.
Do this. And just like dead serious.
It's one moment after another. I'm just like at this one. I'm like, is he really serious? But he is. I had to pay money for these. Like, do you know how expensive this thing was?
Yeah. But this is another one of the great scenes is when they try to set up this little, I guess, sting operation.
Dude,
where that other
what a great scene.
Yeah, where they dress her up in the red. And it's like, hey, you're going to walk out and we're kind of, we're just going to keep eyes on you and see what happened. The car is driving back and forth, waiting for this dude to show up. And we get this important scene too, where there's the two schoolgirls and they're all in that little hut and they're telling him this story about like, oh, the crazy guy crawled out of the outhouse, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that comes back later.
And the way that the shots are designed and framed and composed, it's going to be almost as important. It sets up things that happen later on in the film from where it's framed and where it's angled and stuff. I didn't realize it at the time, but the way that it was, I was like, there's the tension is just like awesome. Yeah. The way the whole thing is framed, it's beautiful. The rain, it's literally as disturbing as the film can be at times from some of the violence, like the shots are so many beautiful shots composed. And this was one of them, like, oh my gosh, I just want to take in everything. I felt like I was in that moment with all those characters.
Well, this scene where, they're out doing their sting, but he's off somewhere else. And there's the other lady walking with the umbrella.
Yeah.
Up to that, like, I guess it's like a mine or factory of some sort, but there's a lot of fuel and she's whistling. And when she hears somebody whistle back,
dude,
that whole scene, like one of the most tense scenes in the film. Like, and that part is like kind of like scared me the first time I saw it.
Absolutely same here, man. On the edge of my seat.
Yeah. And she's just kind of looking around with the flashlight and she pans a flashlight by one area and you can barely see it, dude. In the background, just the head moves. The head comes up and then down again. Like, I remember the first time I saw it, I had to rewind that and it gave me chills. I was like, it's so scary.
I want to watch that scene again because I don't think I've seen something like that deep into focus, that out of focus. Like just, so perfect. Yeah. And just perfectly lit.
Easy to miss that.
Easy to miss.
And then she hears the whistle again. And there's that moment she's looking one way and has the umbrella. And you can tell that she's like afraid to look the other way. Like she's afraid she might see something. Mm-hmm. In the way he just kind of runs out of the bushes at her, and then that's that.
The way it enters the frame, it's oh my gosh.
really well executed.
It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. It's probably it's one of the most terrifying scenes in the film by far.
Yeah.
And because the execution is just on another level, man. And that pushes the cops still haven't found their way quite yet. They're starting to get some pieces. They figured out the rain, radio, the postcard they couldn't find, which would have had an address. You can start to see it on, I think this is the moment where I started to realize it on the sole detective, the inspector, that it's starting to weigh on him that how did I miss this? I missed another one, what I got to do something. Like I need to go. You can start to see, this is where I feel like he started to change and even, well, to a little bit of extent, not quite yet with the main character, but the inspector, I felt like the soul, like I could start to see the change just in his acting and some of his actions he takes after this. He starts reaching for some things. So,
because this is when we get to like another great part in this movie and this is the thing with the shaman shit and the ink and all that. When they go to that crime scene, so this woman gets killed, they find the body, like shit. Oh, we missed it again. How did we miss it? We were out there. But they go back to the crime scene. And I like how they're kind of hiding there. It's Sung Kang-ho and his other detective. But then, so comes
some dude.
And he doesn't even know that they're there. So all three detectives are there. Mm-hmm. I like how it can almost be framed as like the first time I saw it, I was like, oh shit, like he's not the killer, is he? You know what I mean? Because he came back to the crime scene. Totally. But then someone else comes. Such a great scene. And they're all hiding. And then you swear this is going to be it. The dude takes out the bra and the undergarment. Because that's like a whole thing.
That's a whole thing. They've already set up all the details are there. This is
and this guy sets all this up and he's got like a woman's panties on and all this and he starts doing his thing and then again really like tense here when they're just like kind of watching and they're looking at each other like, all right, what's the move to make? Like this is probably him. This is him. Like we're here. And when Sung Kang-ho like nods at the other guy to like, all right, let's go. Yeah. And he moves just the slightest bit and breaks that branch. Dude,
it's like the tiniest of cracks.
And then it just gets really tense. Everyone freezes for a minute. And then we get in this chase where they're all like running and getting this. Man, this was really riveting the first time I saw this whole chase scene. And when they get to that factory or the mine and they're trying they're just a bunch of people and they're trying to narrow it down and find them. And he barely catches them.
The chase there's some interesting aspects to the chase. One, you get to see a little bit more of the town, but the violent partner who is Cho Young-koo is the character's name. He knows the town better than the inspector does. Mm-hmm. So they're able to maneuver and they lose him makes sense. They're hopping fences. It's easy to lose somebody. It's at night, but he knows the town so well. It's one of the times where knowing the town and knowing the people actually does make a difference.
Right.
And so it's kind of nice to see that our buffoonic main character, as I keep saying, their actual knowledge, their experience is actually going to help this situation. So, and they go into, they end up in a construction, zone, and the way that they catch so this is where you start to see the main character Park Do-man, like actually, some of his actual skills get to be used. Where it's like, everyone's paused. The inspector pauses everyone. Don't move anybody. And then he notices the underwear just barely like this is where his eyes actually do help him out.
Just like taking his time and scanning and really trying to dial it in.
It's the close-ups looking at the camera are kind of a thing in this movie. Mm-hmm. It happens a few times, including the very last shot of the film.
He's just off the center of the lens with his eyes.
Is it just off the center? Okay,
he's just like,
gotcha.
And that's what makes the ending work perfectly is the fact that he's looking just outside of the lens, like just out of the eye line.
How did I not notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's why that last shot fucking hits like a gut punch. It's like piercing through your soul, that last shot.
Because they're setting it up too. Like, I don't think it would have had the same impact if we hadn't seen it at times like this. The times where he's not, his lies deceive him. He can't see the eyes of the killer, And even
all of those when he first talks about it at the police station, like during the opening credits, in that he's talking to a guy about it, like, I can just read people. I just get one look in their eyes and I can tell who the bad guy is. And when he tells him, he's like, all right, well, look at these two guys that both of them are like beat up.
Yeah.
He's like, one dude tried to rape the other guy's sister. The other one's the brother, caught him. Which one's the rapist? And then he never answers it. He's looking at them. And then you never get the answer.
Yeah. Probably because who knows, right?
Yeah.
So cool seeing that they're able to grab this guy and, unfortunately, they're going to do their thing about interrogating using their. Wait, they don't beat this guy up, do they? No,
They do. They hang him and everything.
Oh, this is the guy
they
they
hang him upside down.
That's right. Yeah, he's the guy. For 4 days, they beat this guy up.
Yeah.
Holy shit! Oh my gosh! And the inspector sits there. And
That was a weird thing to me.
I
That
thought so too.
he's not like part of
This
it,
is
but
why
he's not doing anything to stop it.
And that's why this is where like I'm starting to think I can see the change that's happening to him, because at this point he probably had the clout where he could have stopped something like this because okay, I know that blah 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 blah. But he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't know. I don't know. But like they let him beat the shit out of this guy. The jump kicks, the everything.
Because it felt like they knew. Like he had the alibi. They went to like the family's house. It's like, yeah, he's a good person and does this and that, and he's like just taking care of his sick wife. Has like 2 kids. They live in a tiny little place.
He's got a porn magazine. He's like any other person who's probably ever been there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's very
Yeah. Other than that, like pretty upstanding citizen from what I remember. And it seems like they might let him go, but then they just keep trying to beat like this confession.
Out of him. And they stop the recording on specific spots. Once again, they go back into their old tricks of forcing confessions. And at this point, I don't trust him at all. I assume this guy's not the killer because they keep making, they're back in their old ways, and that doesn't seem to work on anything else. So.
And I forget what the next clue is, but then, Soul finds out like officially, like, it's not this guy. And, because he talks to that schoolgirl again at the middle school. They talk about the outhouse thing.
There's a story about what happens in the outhouse. Yeah, and puts a Band-Aid on her. Very important part. And he investigates the outhouse and freaks out the teacher who's in the outhouse. But yeah, that's why. So that's what sets up the next part is that there's this whole outhouse thing. So
and he ends up finding a woman that survived. That like lives by there. So he's talking to her.
And who won't confess to him, which I thought was a really interesting, just kind of interesting character traits where he has to go outside, but they do record it. And the... what's the important bit of information we get out of that one?
It's that he had soft hands, like a woman's hands.
Yeah, they were soft.
So he's not a working man.
Yes, exactly.
Or like a labor working man. So big clue. That's when he rushes in and he feels his hands. He's like, "This ain't him.
This ain't him."
It's crazy too, and it's sad. It actually makes me kind of sad when he's like hanging there, and then he's like, "No, yeah, I did it or whatever," and he's like, "No, you didn't."
No, you didn't. Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, you did." He's like, "I don't even know." He's like, "I think I did. I don't know," because they just like tortured him so much that he's just saying whatever they want to hear.
Yeah, man.
Like I don't even know anymore. Like maybe I did. I don't know. Like
for real, man. That part's it's tough for me to watch a little bit.
It's rough.
Yeah, man.
And you're seeing these people like get driven to madness too. It's like,
man, right?
Especially that guy. Like it's really sad. But this is when they get in their fight, like because he gets all mad that they let him go. They get in the fight. The song starts playing. It's raining. Yep. Another person gets killed that night.
Yeah, with this one, somebody do they declare the state of what do they try to do? I don't even remember how they try to get out of this one. Why am I drawing a blank? What are the actions they take, or do they just find a victim?
I think they just find the body. Like I think they hear the song. They see that it's raining. There's going to be another murder. I don't remember if they even like make it out in time to do anything.
I don't think they do anything on this one.
And then they just end up finding a body.
Yeah.
And the chief like gets on their case about how like, oh, well, you guys were fighting and then this happened.
And this is disgusting, but this is the part where they pull the peaches out, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it almost feels like somebody's starting to play with these guys, like because every murder's been perfect. There's been no forensic evidence whatsoever. And now there's these peaches, a full peach left in there. So,
and I really like the shot. And this is the moment where they both really start to change now.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
Especially they're full like on, now it's like, okay, this is very real.
Yeah.
And we got to remember too that again, my understanding is this was like the first kind of serial killer case that they had over there.
Yeah, it's wild.
And there's this great shot where they're both just like resting their heads on the table. And I don't remember what he says.
Talking to each other.
It's just like how do we do this? Like, how are we going to get this person? Because like you said, that peach thing like really kind of like he's playing with them now, and
they talk about what time did it happen. It happened right as they were fighting. Like they lived. It was like so perfectly placed.
Yeah, and
this what leads them to they started thinking about one of the people they picked up in the first place. One of the victims, I shouldn't say victims. The person they thought of in the first place, which was I don't know what his name is, but the character who's mentally disabled.
Yeah. They start to realize like, oh, what he said was what he saw. Like he followed her. He saw it. He's a witness. He's the only witness we got.
They're beating the shit out of him. They didn't even take a moment to think about it.
It was just, oh, you did it. And so, man, another great scene. And the other detective, the one that like wears the booty when he like beats the people up, he got in trouble because I think he hit that other dude in front of the wrong person or whatever. So
Yeah, he gets kicked out of the interrogation. He's not allowed in there.
yeah, he's like, says, oh wait, no, that's even later. Hold on,
Oh,
that's
sure. I'm sorry, I jumped the
later.
gun, didn't I? Yeah.
Because it's around this point, you know,
haven't brought in
the song comes in and all that. And so they use a song, they get the postcard this time.
They go to the address.
Yeah, they go to the address. They find this young man.
He's got soft hands.
At his work, got the soft hands. They're interrogating him.
Inspector's totally just like beside himself. He's full on just losing it right now.
Yeah. And they like really like this has to be the guy. Like it has to be him. And man, this dude just, I'm sorry to say, but just looks like a prick. He's a good actor.
He plays the part perfectly.
Yeah.
And you could understand people in his position being like, fuck you. You guys have beat the shit out of so many of us in this town. Why should I?
Like he said, and everybody knows it.
And everyone knows it.
Yeah.
So why should I give you the pleasure? You're just going to beat the shit out of me anyway.
Yeah.
And you could totally get behind, he's total prick, but you could totally get behind like why he's acting that way.
Yeah.
So.
But the dude hits him. And so now he's kicked in. Like, so that's done. They let him out. Go. Yeah. And yeah, I think this is the point where they go to find that other dude to get who false confessed, but really witnessed it.
Yeah.
And this fight breaks out because they're talking about how that dude got suspended on the news. He happens to be there.
Because he got kicked out of the interrogation. He's drunk as all get out. So.
And all the people at the restaurant he's at are talking about like these cops are bullshit and all that. And they're all unjustified. And then now he starts a big brawl.
Dude.
The dude comes in, hits him with a rusty nail. They chase him. And another great scene, man, when they're like chasing him.
Oh, man.
And now, obviously, this dude doesn't trust them because the last time they caught him up, they were torturing him.
Beat the hell out of him.
So he climbs up this pole and they're trying to tell him, like, no, it's all good. Like, yeah, you saw it, right? You saw it. You're the witness. And the way stuff works out, spoiler alert, he stumbles in front. And the way this is just shot and covered, and there's a struggle because all the people from the restaurant come, and so they start fighting. They get split up.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
And then he just stumbles in front of the train, and it's such a rough moment when he's trying to get him to like come back. He's like, dude, no, come over here. And
it doesn't even, who even knows if he knows he's on the train because he's mentally handicapped. So it's like, who knows what is going through his mind or how you can, all he knows is he's scared of these cops.
Yeah, he's just like whistling, right? He's just like, you got to help me from this guy. You got to help me from him. You know?
So this is only my first time seeing it, obviously. And as I'm thinking back upon it, like all these night shots are brilliant, man. Like brilliantly choreographed and blocked and staged. And at the same time, the night shots look so real. Like one of the toughest things in my opinion to do in film is like to convincing night shot that doesn't look like it's lit, you know? And all this stuff just feels so like part of the scene takes place on that post. And so you would expect some light to be there lighting the post and just enough to these people can see each other. It's just really well. The more I'm thinking about it, like these night shots are brilliant, man. Because a fair amount of it happens at night too. Yeah. So it's really sad. And it does get them some information that they need, but really sad.
But now it's useless. The one witness they had, because the other chick that would survive made it a point to say, I didn't look at his face. I didn't want to see it. Mm-hmm. So she has no idea. All she's got is the clue of the hands. And this is one of those moments too that's clearly changing them, right? Where like, and then Sung Kang-ho's the one who's there. The blood gets on him. Yeah, man. And he's just kind of taken aback. And I think now they're realizing like, shit, man, like, this is infectious and things are getting really bad. And
you start to see him change. I think that's the interesting part. And like that's the thing I think I really like.
Yeah.
The way
character
two different. Yeah, I know. And we talk about arcs all the time, but this one, it seems reasonable the way that their arcs are changing as well, especially where they're going to end up. That it's going to, I felt, I'm feeling like the inspector's going to blow up at some times. And I feel like, the other character is just, he's starting to come around to that way of doing things. Like, I got to trust the science at some point, So,
and there's another important scene where he's kind of venting to his wife or girlfriend again, and she's talking about like, you look like you haven't. I don't remember the exact dialogue, but you look very tired, like you haven't slept. You look like you're dead. Yeah,
for a little bit.
You're like, man, you just look rough. Like you need to do something else. Like this might not.
This
be
not might be for you.
This might not be the right gig for you.
There's two moments I like that are coming up. One is that the inspector is going to start like surveilling on his own time who he thinks is the person who did this, and at the same time, I'm sorry, my apologies. Song Kang-ho's character, we see how he's trying to put the pieces together and what he can do in his capacity to try to figure out what the hell's going on. And I love that juxtaposition, like you're saying, because suddenly the woman who's his partner is going to start. It's going to be an interesting scene coming up, a really important scene with her, and in a way you wouldn't have thought of. And also, the inspector is he's turning almost into Song Kang-ho's character we saw earlier in the film, where it's like he's driven by a little bit of madness here. He falls asleep while he's trying to watch the character, and it's so brutal.
It's covered so well, man. When he's just watching him and you see him like dozing off, yeah,
dude.
But that's a testament to how well it's edited. That it'll like cut to black for a second, and then it comes back, and he wakes up, and the dude's gone. And he was like that, just there, and barely miss him. He gets on the bus.
Immediately starts car doesn't start
because
it starts to rain. Yeah. The whole thing. Oh, jeez.
And yeah, dude, this movie is just all great scenes. It's all great movie.
This one might have been my favorite. The one where they're
the two women.
Because everything they've set up in this film kind of leads to this a little, in that you know the language of the film at this point.
Yeah.
You know what happens when things are staged a certain way. You know all the details that go into all the murders. Like everything you know about the story so far is at play in just this one little scene.
Yeah.
And what a scene.
Yeah, she's walking in. It happens to be Song Kang-ho's partner.
Yes.
Right? Her cross paths with one of the middle school girls. And you see the dude like in the tree silhouette, just like they're watching. Mm-hmm. He's locked on one woman, and then you don't know where is he going to go. Switches to the younger one.
I didn't make the connection that was the student that the inspector had interviewed earlier until the Band-Aid.
Yeah, same.
Which I don't know if I wonder if watching it a second time if that would change. But I didn't make that connection at all. I just oh man, poor student. But holy shit, and you don't see the murder happen. You don't see what gets chosen. You just see the cut to the next scene.
But what you do see, and this is what's really rough about it, is because up to this point,
you just see her grab. You see her grabbed. I'm sorry.
You see her grab, like he just kind of tackles her. But even beyond that, like with the other murders, they leave most of it to the imagination. They show you just enough little flashes here and there. And this is the one time where like we don't see her get murdered, but we see just before she's tied up. She's whimpering. She's crying. He's putting the thing over her head. He's taking out his spoon and his little
pen
tools,
or whatever the hell they said.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Oh, dude,
and that watch, and then it just fades to black. And then they find the body, and it's like, yep, we found all this stuff. And
I got to tell you, I almost got sick to my stomach. There's this little moment, but this is how masterful the filmmaking is. As the forensics is, I assume, retrieving stuff from her body. You see the body move a little bit as they are taking things out. Yeah. Literally almost got sick to my stomach. Watch. You don't see it happen. This is the total Hitchcock, thing where like you don't see the thing happen. You just see how it impacts the body in this case, and the others looking at it. And it's one of the things I think that sends the inspector over. Like, there's so many things that send him over, but this one definitely did.
Yeah, this is the final straw. And it's because, and I totally understand it, because they had him. Yeah. And because whatever nonsense he's the one person they had to let go. Right. He fell, like everything just went wrong. He fell asleep, could have caught him. The car didn't start. So in his mind,
this is the guy. This is the guy.
Yeah. And this is assuming it is him.
Yeah.
It might not be, it probably is, but we don't even know. But yeah, they believe like this has to be the guy. This is for sure him. The address, it's there. Of course it is.
It has to be this guy.
And then he misses it. He leaves. And of course this happens. And then now he's connected because he's had interactions with this victim.
Yes.
So now it's a whole other level. And meanwhile, we didn't even say this, but in the murder before, they found a piece of clothing that had semen on it.
Right, yes.
But they don't have the forensic technology to analyze it. So they have to send it to America.
In 86 and in Korea.
They're like, we don't have this. We got to send it to America, wait for the results. Obviously time is an issue here. But yeah, this is when he goes rogue, man. Dude. And like, just goes and kidnaps him.
He loses it.
Kidnaps him, takes him to the train tracks. It's raining. I love those shots from the other side of the tunnel, beating him up.
Oh, jeez.
Has a gun to his head, and Sung Kang-ho, I forget how he recognizes this, but he knows that something's up.
Yeah.
So he knows enough to like follow him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he stops him in time. And with they get the results back. Dude, in this part, like, again, another gut punch to me when he opens it up and now Sung Kang-ho's beating him up and the other dude opens it and we see that it's inconclusive. They can't do anything about it. Oh, man, it's such a sad moment.
Because, we're so conditioned. Oh, this is going to be the moment. We're going to find out what's going on and this is going to lead to, we're going to solve this mystery.
Yeah.
No.
Nope.
fuck you.
Yep. Nope. And not even like it's not even a clear like it's not hit. Like what are the cherry on top?
Inconclusive. The worst ever.
Yeah. So it doesn't even rule them out. It's just we don't even know.
Oh man.
And then the great just moment where Sung Kang Ho is holding him and like and looking in his eyes and trying to determine like is this him? But you see him get emotional. Like I feel like this is the moment where I think this is the moment where he realizes like I can't do this. Like this isn't me.
I am not made out for this.
Yeah. And again, that interesting switch, whereas earlier in the movie, he would have killed him.
Beat the hell out. Yeah, totally would have just smoked him. Yeah.
Or killed him. And now he has to be the one that's like, you can't do it.
Man.
Like you can't shoot him. You can't murder him. He ends up getting away.
And the inspector almost does, man. The inspector almost murders him.
He does fire at him.
He fires a couple times.
Yeah. But
and
gets away. The first time I saw it, because from here, then it cuts to 17 years later? It's like 2003.
Yeah.
And it really kind of threw me off.
Jarring,
I was
dude.
like, whoa, we're just suddenly like, what happened? Like, what happened to everybody?
Not something you see in a film like this, in a murder mystery.
Yeah. Did that take you aback as well?
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm like, wait, what?
I was like, 2003 now.
So at the tunnel, I was resolved that, okay, this is just not going to be solved. I'm not going to get a nice clean bow at the end of this film.
Yeah.
So the fact that we jumped to 2003, that was like the last thing I was going to expect. Like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything?
And then it's Sung Kang Ho and he has like 2 teenage kids.
They're sitting at a table.
Like
they're not on the floor anymore. Like
you can having breakfast, nice pad.
Video games.
Yeah, man. And then he's in the car. So with all this product, so it seems like he's a salesman of some sort.
Talking about manager meeting and stuff like that.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting. And now we're back to like more saturated colors, just like the beginning of the movie.
the beginning. Talk about bookending it.
And he happens to stop at that location from the first scene in the movie. I love the way this comes full circle, that yellow field. And he stops by to look into the sewer where he found the first body in October of 1986 or whatever. And the little girl comes up. Like, what are you looking for? What are you looking at? Just like, something from the past or whatever. And she's like, yeah, that's weird because someone else was here just the other day.
Said the same thing.
And you see it like kind of spark in him, right? And she tells him, oh, like what did he say? And she's just like, oh, he just said that he did something here a long time ago and wanted to remind himself. Because if we know anything, criminals, especially serial killers, tend to return to the crime scene. That's just like a thing.
Yeah.
I guess it's very common. And like that, he just has to ask her, right? Like, what did he look like? What did he look like? And she says, just ordinary,
looking,
plain, ordinary.
That's right, plain,
yeah, man. And then she walks away, and he's there, and the wind's blowing, and the music swells, and he looks dead into the camera, fade to black. Just thinking about it, like, gets me kind of emotional. It is such a good ending, people. I hope you watch this movie before you listen to the podcast.
I got to tell you, the part that I actually got emotional was at the tunnel.
Yeah, that too. That like
when he comes up with the report and is, at this point, he's actually trying to stop somebody from getting beaten.
Yeah.
That his character would not have done that earlier in the film.
Or from getting murdered, because he does beat him up too.
That's right, too. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right.
He shows up, and as soon as he has the files over, he's punching him and kicking him.
That's a good point. He runs him beat that. That's a good point. But like just those little things that like you could see how his character has made this journey and has changed. And I agree with you. When he looks at it's haunting. It's almost like if you don't get chills from that, you know.
And he can't even read it because he's like, what does it say? He just sees that. He's like, no, it can't be. It can't be. And he's like, what does it say? And then it even gets torn up by the train that comes by. But dude,
brilliant. The whole thing is brilliant, and it's such a good payoff from what the journey you've gone on with these characters up to this point too. So
and it's crazy how it ties back into like the conversations with his wife and just again. And I didn't even realize that when he's looking into his eyes when he's holding him there in the rain at the end. Talking about is what made me realize it's like, oh, that's the moment.
That's the moment.
That's when he decided he needs to change his life.
Totally.
He needs to do something different.
What he thought was his number one asset is actually total bullshit, And like, oh man, if you ever have that realization in real life, it's got to be, I can only imagine. I mean, I've had some similar things and you're just like, God damn it. Your whole life is rattled by that. So.
And that he's going to leave this profession because of this. And I was kind of taken aback too, how we don't even see what happens with the other guys. Like
there's no resolution on any of that.
And even
stuff.
with the dude from Soul, like I would like, well, where's he in 2003?
Where's he? Where's
now?
the partner? You know, he got a below the knee amputation.
Right,
all this stuff.
Right.
So,
dude, man, it's crazy. And the more insane thing, I must have seen this in an interview with Bong Joon Ho because I don't remember where I got this from, but someone else also talked to me about it. So clearly he said it, the director himself at some point. But so the whole thing is, this is based off a true story, and they never caught the guy. I think they just caught him like several years ago, like within the last like 5 or 10 years, or not 10 years, but 5 years
recently.
Or so.
Yeah. Holy cow.
Like in the 2010s or something.
Wow.
I was reading something about it. Yeah. They never caught the dude, and it's crazy. And it's based on a true story. And I guess the significance, like thematically, it just works. Then he looks into the camera. Therefore, he's looking directly at you. But you think about it in terms of an audience and seeing it in the theater, he's looking out at the audience to try and find this person. And for all we know, that person could have seen this movie. Oh, isn't that crazy?
That is wild. I hadn't even thought about that.
That person could have watched this movie, and they're looking at him. Wow.
Hadn't even thought about that. And I bet you it plays quite well in the theater. Obviously I didn't get a chance to see it in the theater.
I can only imagine. That last close up.
And the cinematography is so great to begin with. I'm sure at some point I'd love to see this. This is one of those ones where I'd love to see on a big screen for sure with an audience.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
Loved it. I think like you, I want to let it sit for a little bit, but this will definitely be a criterion I purchase. Like I want to know how some of this came about too. Like, cause especially if this is like only a second film, this stuff kind of blows my mind where people can put together things like this. And this is like their second time. Right. You're like, holy shit. Cause he's using, if you study cinema or whatever, you can tell he's using a lot of tricks that other filmmakers have used and stuff. There's a lot of references playing on our expectations of what a murder mystery is about. Like I love that aspect that he's literally all of our little expectations. He pretty much just says, screw you so often. It works so well playing against those expectations that we've talked about, that we highlighted when we were talking. It's so cool. Yeah. It's amazing to see that talent. It's you were destined to win an Oscar for sure. Never bored. Like every scene is important. Like it's one of those, it's like, there's no wasted time. You know, it's everything great cinema can do, you know? Yeah. Pretty cool, man. Yep. Dang, man. Memories of Murder. Oof. Go watch it. Go watch it. And both of these Sagamore bottles opened up very, very nicely. Do you have a preference for one or the other, or are you enjoying both? I'm enjoying both. The bottled and bond really opened up well. Yeah, I'm gonna say that's probably good. The one I would tend towards a little bit over the Dopplebock, but Dopplebock, not Dopplebock. Man, the Dopplebock though, it's just in a different league though, because it's coming through with more of those sweeter notes on the front. Man, it's like it's really different. Oh man, they're both good, just for different times. Dopplebock might be more of like that fall. Like that's a Thanksgiving pour right there. I wonder if they'll ever. Maybe they won't, because it's probably a small batch. But if you're ever in Baltimore, pick up a bottle. But it's like I'm guessing you won't be able to get it outside of the distillery anytime soon. So yeah, I think every couple months or weeks or whatever, they'll do a different distillery exclusive. Oh, cool. With a different finish. I forgot what the last one was. But I was looking back on their Instagram. Yeah, that's cool. There was one they did maybe a year ago or months ago that was a mezcal finish. Man, I would have loved to try that. Yeah. I can't even imagine. If there's anybody out there that happens to have that and is a fan of the podcast, I know I'm reaching here, but if you can hit me with a sample, like send me, I would just, a little taste. It just seems so intriguing, like a rye whiskey finished in mezcal. Because the tequila one that we both tried, like I thought was good. Oh yeah, man. And you definitely get some of those notes, but man, a mezcal, like especially if it's like one that's pretty smoky, that could be really good. It's good shit. Maybe I'll throw a little mezcal into my. Had a really good mezcal old fashioned in Vegas during Chris's bachelor party. Oh yeah, there you go. That was a good one. Yep. So man, yeah, dude. Well, thanks again. Hey, good movie, good juice. Watch it. Yep, that's a wrap. Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Drinks in a Movie podcast. You can now find us on Instagram at Drinks in a Movie Pod, where we'll be posting photos from all the various films that we discuss. You can also email us at drinksinamoviepod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and thank you for listening.